Okay, hi, my name is Mary. I'm a compulsive eater and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I write it down every night before I go to bed. I turn it over to my sponsor or someone else with 90 days back-to-back gray sheet abstinence. I don't eat in between meals no matter what. And abstinence is the most important thing in my life. And I'm abstinent today by the grace of God and the fellowship of this community. And today is day 10,634. April 25th, I celebrated 29 years of back-to-back gray sheet abstinence. And I say that only because there's no one more surprised than me that I've done this all these years. I couldn't do anything for more than 3 days. And I just couldn't. I would try. I was always determined. Definitely January 1st. That's it. I'm going to start that diet. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm going to get my money in order. Definitely January 1st, which would come and go. Okay, definitely Monday. All right, I'm going to take care of a few things on the weekend before, and Monday would come and go. So many Mondays would come and go, and it just didn't happen. But my story is I grew up in Michigan. I'm the fifth of 11 children. And my mother was a compulsive eater. So, as they say, the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. So, she was a registered nurse by training, and she was a baker by necessity, but because she had to make stuff because it's too expensive to buy it for all those kids. Um, so, um, and So I would make something that would yield 3 dozen or whatever that was supposed to go on a sheet in the oven. Never made it. I put it in the back of the refrigerator. And when I needed a hit, I would just, who thought about salmonella because there was a raw thing in it. Oh, obviously I didn't die because I'm here talking today. But I would just take a spoonful and I would, it's like that first cigarette, that first drag off a cigarette. And it was like, but it was so elusive. That was so elusive with food, with alcohol, with cigarettes. So I was coming up on my 40th birthday, and I decided I better do something about my life. I don't want a doctor coming up to me and saying, because you ate, drank, and whatever, these are the diseases that you have. So, and that was my 40th birthday. And can you imagine there was a gray sheeter at the celebration? And that was my gray sheet angel who brought me to gray sheet. And we actually had a relationship. And I will tell you that the best thing I got from that relationship was introduction to gray sheet, because it wasn't long before we broke up. And I just want to thank Theta and Joel for the host and everyone who does service on this meeting, because I'm here because I don't want to eat compulsively. And so for those who don't know me, Marathon Mary is not because I talk a lot and talk really fast, but or about the phone bridge meetings, which I do go on, but Marathon Mary is because I have trained for and run in 13 abstinent marathons, which means it's 26.2 miles, or as I say, 385 of the longest effing yards you can imagine. I get into Central Park for the New York City Marathon. I'd see the 26-mile mark, and it's like, no, it's not over yet, not over yet. So, and my training for the marathon and my abstinence kind of go hand in hand, because I would do qualifications when I was doing my training runs. And for Gray Sheet, every meal I do is a training run for that big no matter what. And I shared this recently. I was asked to speak on a Spanish meeting out of Madrid, and everything was in Spanish, so they would translate as I spoke, and I, got the cadence down. And then afterwards, I was really surprised. It kind of took me back. They started to ask questions. I was, okay, that's pretty cool. So this woman in Spain or wherever asked me, what was your worst no matter what? And I'm going to say, and so I told her, my worst no matter what was my first no matter what. And that was when I broke up with my gray sheet angel. And I grew up in the New York City community, and they told me, just don't eat no matter what. There's always a way to stay abstinent and, make phone calls, get to a meeting, whatever. And they also told me that, you know, because there's nothing between me and that, there's nothing between me between breakfast and lunch and dinner to breakfast the next day. It's me, God, and water, as I say. But it's like, just don't eat no matter what. That's the bottom line. So I've been doing this for 29 plus years. So I know there's no one has ever died of abstinent pain. I'll just tell you, I felt like it. And for me, thank God, I didn't even think about, well, have a little of this or a little of that, like I ever had a little of anything. Okay. It was a cigarette wasn't going to cure, take the pain away. Alcohol wasn't going to, or food. And just recently, December 13th, I was driving home from work and I had a stroke. Can you imagine my surprise? Marathon Mary had a stroke. What's up with that? And I was on my way home. And so my brain was being deprived of oxygen. So I wasn't thinking clearly. And I got into a small fender bender. And I got out of my car and I was picking up pieces of the front end and putting them in my trunk. I saw the other car, but not thinking about I should get their insurance, call the police. Never hit the gray matter to do that. But I'll tell you one thing, I had to go to the bathroom. I had to pee. So I got back in my car and I drove home. And I called my sister, and she was a police officer in Texas years ago. She goes, Mary, you're going to get arrested. You left the scene of an accident. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called 911. They told me, come to the police station. We need to see your car. And I'm like, and I just prayed the whole time because I'm in a car and I'm having a stroke. Does not make any sense. So I get there. And when I got into the police station, it was affecting my left side, so I was having a hard time standing up or standing still, and my left arm, and obviously a little bit of my speech as well. He said, "Ma'am, have you had a drink?" And I go, "I don't drink." And he said, "Well, it's okay if you did, just tell us." And I'm like, no. And then he said, are you a member of the methadone program? Maybe it was the purple hair. I don't know. And I said, no. And I had my sister in one ear and my wife in the other. She must have called my wife. So he said, are you having a medical emergency? So they're both screaming in my ear at the same time. Tell them you're having a medical emergency to call an ambulance. I said, yes, sir, I'm having a medical emergency. Please call an ambulance. They did. They took me to the hospital where I went to gray sheet meetings, which I thought was kind of ironic. And my right carotid artery was completely blocked. That's why it was depriving my brain of oxygen. They cleaned it out. They put in a stent, and my wife came to the hospital. The first person she called was my a sponsor. So if you have a wife, husband, whatever, make sure that person has your sponsor's number, because you never know when something like this is going to happen. Because I was in surgery and she knew I was going to come out hungry. So she worked with my sponsor, and that was it. Because there was no question for me whether or not I was going to be abstinent. So, and there's so many gray sheeters in New York, they just flocked to the ICU where my wife was just watching me, and the surgeon kept coming out and saying, she's not out of the woods yet. And she goes, how big is this forest? And she was like worried sick, obviously. And she made her discussion. She told me about her discussion with God. Take the house, take the cars. I don't need anything. I just need Mary. Please, just don't take Mary. And so if anybody has a problem with me, they need to go to a higher power to talk to him, because it wasn't my decision to stay. But I'm glad I'm here. And I'm grateful for every breath. And I was never in a coma. I mean, I heard stories about Mary's in a coma. No, never in a coma. Just had a stroke. And thank God I was in fit spiritual condition. I was also in uh, um, fit spiritual and fit physical condition because the doctor told my wife if she wasn't in the condition she's in,
5 minutes, Mary.
okay, 5 minutes, okay, um, she wouldn't be here. And so they would tell me, give us a thumbs up. I could not do this. I couldn't do a thumbs up. I couldn't wiggle my left toes. I couldn't, and because my wife would say, hit the clutch, because the left is the clutch, right? Hit the clutch. I couldn't move it, couldn't move it. And then I'm staring at my hand and she said, Mary, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? And you're like, why am I staring at my hand? And so I told her, I said, move, motherfucker, move. Because everybody's yelling at me to move my hands. I couldn't do it. But this is a newcomers meeting. So, but when I first, the tools that I used my first 90 days, which are the fellowship meetings, the phone calls, the literature, I still use that to stay abstinent every day. And another, no matter what I had was, I was out of work for 5 years. And somebody said, how did you do it? I said, I kept it in the day. I made I structured my day. So, and, and the reason that Gray Sheet works for me is I'm a Capricorn and Capricorns thrive on structure. So it works for me. And I got friendly with the people who counted days with me. And they're still abstinent today. And what I love about the New York City community, when I came in, those people who are celebrating 39 in more years, they're still abstinent. So there's consistency, there's longevity here. It works. It does work. And like I went to a meeting one time because, everybody's not uncomfortable going into a restaurant. And this one woman said she put her plate on top of her scale, and somebody in the restaurant says, how come her plate's on a pedestal? So little things that like that I would remember. And people would bring up their fat pictures, right? And they would show, listen, if you give me this, this, and this, I'll take care of you because I don't want to look like this anymore, ever again. Well, I don't really have a fat picture. Often wanted to borrow somebody else's, but I just said, this is what I need. Or allergies is good too. Or if they ask you about the scale, you can always say you're training for a marathon. I I take no offense. I take no offense. Or I tell people I have to make sure I get enough food. And then people will make a comment, oh, you look at all that food you eat. I said, well, I have to keep my girlish figure, you know? And, and people, sometimes with humor, it kind of takes the tension out of the air, so to speak. So I told my wife, I said, I need to see a therapist. So I've been seeing a therapist on a Zoom, also for a speech therapist. That's not for the way I sound. It's for my cognitive reasoning and things like that. And I had to work with my sponsor, especially close in the rehab, because I'm laying there. The thought of eating, 3 cups of vegetables, I was like, oh no. So I got through that. I just, kind of prayed through it, and I worked with her, and we figured it all out. And so everything's, pretty much back to normal with the food. And what I love is, this happened. Uh, Actually, it happened during COVID. If I think about it, COVID was still around in 2023. And but the bonus for me being on disability now is I get to go on all these Zoom meetings because I don't have to go to the office. And I get to meet all these wonderful people or see people I know, but and I my one of my first Zoom meetings, I saw a sponsee I hadn't seen in 20 years because she's out of the country. And I was like, oh, and I say it's true. This program is the fountain of youth because she doesn't look any older than the day she came, here to go to a face-to-face meeting. And I've met so many wonderful people here, and I know everybody prayed for me. And I pray for all of you because I want everybody to stay absent. This is a gift I give myself every day. Somebody told me, Mary, you have no idea how many people prayed for you. I said, I do, because my wife said they were about to crack my skull because my brain was swelling and I was having a brain bleed. And she came in and she said, it stopped. I said, that was everybody praying. And even when I was in the rehab, I would just lay there in the bed and literally I could feel my whole body being lifted up. It was like amazing. And I talked to people, on the other side who had passed, like my parents. And I went to a psychic with my wife years ago, and she said there's a older gentleman standing at the pearly gates. He's greeting people. And my wife says, that's got to be your dad. He talks to everybody. So I saw my dad one night and he said, next. Okay, thank you. Anyway, I'm here. And the one gray sheeter I did talk to who had passed said, it's not your time, Mary. You have more work to do. So I must be Gray Sheet Works to spread the word because this is the greatest program and the greatest fellowship. It's the first 12-step program I ever was ever in, and it's my last. And I'm just grateful you're all here to share this gift with me and to see your beautiful smiling faces. Thanks, CJ. No matter what.